Fear of judgment from other people, first of all, is a healthy thing. We grew up as relying on each other for survival. And so the way that others judge you, because your survival is pinned to others in a large way, the way that others judge you directly impacts your survival. So at the very root of this is a fear of life and death. Being outcast from the tribe in ancient times meant death. So fear of judgment from other people is an ancient line of programming that's in all of us. And if there's no fear of judgment by default, okay, out of the box, factory ready human being, if the default setting is no fear of judgment, that's dysfunction and sickness. That's like narcissism, sociopathic behavior. That's not a good thing. So fear of being judged by other people by default is healthy. Now, if we're looking at what's optimal to achieve a goal, the first thing, again, to reiterate, fear of judgment of other people, not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. There are people will tell you like a good, bad, otherwise they'll judge you for fearing judgment from other people. Oh, you're like so soft. Your mind is weak. No, you're just a healthy, well-adjusted human being. And those people that are saying that are just misunderstanding the whole thing. They're coming from ignorance. Okay. So understanding that it's a natural thing, healthy. What's optimal is that fear of judgment from other people doesn't impede you from doing what you want to do. So it doesn't hurt your performance on the basketball court. It doesn't make you, I think you use the example of public speaking. It doesn't make you either not do the public speaking or trip up on your words while you're public speaking. It doesn't create a blockage for you. That's your goal. That's what's optimal. And so the way to get over that, the first one and most simple one is exposure. So if you fear judgment from other people in public speaking, the more public speaking you do, the less you're going to fear judgment from other people because you've just done it so many times that your system normalizes to it. If you fear judgment from big crowds when you're playing, basketball on a big stage, big game, whatever, the more big games you play in, the more comfortable you're going to be with that fear of judgment from other people. The more you fear judgment from a pretty girl who you want to approach, the more pretty girls you approach, the less you're going to fear being judged by pretty girls. So exposure therapy is really the simplest solution to it. And that requires a willingness to feel the fear of judgment that you feel and just do the thing anyway. And what we find, I've spoken about this in the past, so I'm reiterating for those who've heard me say this before, but there was, I believe it was at Stanford, there was a study done on the fear response. And what they found is that, well, all of us know this to begin with, the fear response really has three options. When we become afraid, we can fight, there's fight, flight, or freeze. Meaning you move toward the thing that you fear, you run away from it, or you freeze in place. If you're public speaking, this means you step on stage and you say the words anyway, and you just start talking and it comes out. Or you run away and don't give the speech in public at all. Or you step on stage and you freeze up and you're like, and nothing comes out. So there's three options. What this study at Stanford found out is that when you move towards the thing that you fear, dopamine is actually released in your brain. It's sort of, nature loves courage. Like it's nature's biological reward mechanism or neurological reward mechanism for moving toward the thing that you're afraid of, assuming it's not a threat to your survival. So like if, let's not go down that side path. So paradoxically, when you get on stage, the first time I spoke in public, it was to a room. I think this was at the first time I spoke in public was at Elliot Hulse's event, like back in 2016. So there might have been like 400 or 500 people in the room. I flew in for it. And I'm speaking for the first time. I've never done it before. So, yeah, of course, I'm going to be afraid. Like, I'm going to be nervous, anxious, all of that. No amount of meditative practice or mental jujitsu, there's no switch in the brain that should just turn that off. That's not normal. It's normal for me to feel anxious in that circumstance. So, the solution to that was to step on stage and start talking. And 30 seconds later, I feel really good. I still feel like the energy of the anxiety, but that energy had turned into this sort of like almost an endorphin rush. It was like a high of speaking in front of people, and it turned into a really, really enjoyable experience and something that I really enjoy doing now because I moved towards the fear. And so the solution to fear of judgment is to get clear on the thing that you're afraid of being judged for, move towards it, and do that over and over and over again so that your system normalizes to that feeling of fear. It's not necessarily that you want it to like go away entirely. It's just that it becomes so normal to you that it's no longer a problem. Fear is just energy. And so that energy can be put to use in the thing that you're moving towards. Fear itself like heightens reaction time. It sharpens your awareness. It has all of these. It raises your energy. Fear is there to like give you energy to deal with the situation at hand. And so it's a useful thing. It's not a problem. The first step to like dealing with it is to understand that it's not a problem. It's not unhealthy. It's not dysfunctional. There's nothing wrong with you. It's natural. It's a sign of health. And the second one is to do the thing anyway, not pinning your sense of uh, self-worth or accomplishment or results or anything like that on the outcome of doing it, but just make your criteria for success having done it. That way you can do it over and over and over and over and over again. And then it's just like not a big deal. You just normalize to that feeling, right? If you're having trouble with this still, and you're just like, no, I'm still freezing up, one way to sort of thaw yourself and get yourself moving towards it is just to get really clear on what you're actually afraid of. So deconstruct the fear. If you are afraid of fear of judgment, well, what are you afraid of being judged for? What are you afraid people will say to you? What are you afraid you're going to do to bring about judgment from other people? Get really clear, like what's the worst case scenario that you do not want to have happen? Write that out in writing, not just in your mind, but actually write it down. And then ask yourself, could I deal with this? Is this really as big of a deal as I make it out to be? If I'm so afraid of missing the game-winning shot, like what exactly am I afraid of? Okay, I missed the game-winning shot. I feel disappointment. I feel embarrassment. My teammates might be disappointed with me. I'll go home sad. Could I deal with that? Yeah. You know, there's some like uncomfortable emotions, and that's pretty much it. And that's pretty much the case with all things that we're afraid of, you know? It's different if there's a tiger in your room and I'm like, what's the worst case scenario? This tiger just rips me to shreds and I die. Maybe I want to take different action. Maybe I don't want to move towards that fear. Maybe I want to get out of there. But short of that, most of what we're afraid of is really not that scary when you deconstruct the fear and what you're afraid of and just see it for what it is, which is your mind creating stories about what may happen, most of which will never happen. And those that do happen aren't that big of a deal if they happen. Does that make sense?